Hey folks, welcome into Truck King. This is the all-electric Mercedes-Benz G Wagen, and it has all kinds of wild features like G steering. Take a look. Now we all know that the G Wagen, honestly, these days is more at home in Los Angeles or Malibu than it is out here in the bush in Canada. But you know what? Mercedes says it's still a G Wagen. It's still built rugged and ready for adventure, and that's what I want to put to the test. So in this video, we're gonna go off-road and we're gonna see if this electric G still deserves that G Wagen name. Let's get into it. Let's kick this one off with a walk around. So first of all, I got to tell you that the official name of this vehicle is the Mercedes-Benz G580 with EQ technology. I don't know why they didn't really follow the naming convention they have on their other electric vehicles. They should have just called this the EQG. At least that's my opinion. I just feel like it's a funny name. And when you say with EQ technology, you don't know it's an EV just based on the name. So that's the official name. But for the rest of this video, we're just going to call it the electric G Wagen because that's what everybody else calls it. Now, yes, this is the all-electric G. It has 4 individual motors. So each wheel has its own electric motor. Total system output here, 579 horsepower and 859 pound-feet of torque, so some ridiculous power numbers. Now the model we're looking at right here is the Edition 1. This was a special version that Mercedes made available at launch, and it basically brings along all of the nicer luxury features. So things like those blacked out AMG wheels, you're also getting a black grille and some black accents. Obviously with our white finish today, this is very much the Stormtrooper look, and I think on the styling, you have to be happy that Mercedes didn't mess with it. This is a G-Wagen. It needs to look like a G-Wagen. If they came along and said, hey, it's electric, let's massage some of the looks, that would have been a mistake. So kudos to them. They didn't touch the way it looks. They just brought along the electric powertrain. And why don't you drop in the comments now and let me know, what do you think of the styling here on this all-electric G-Class? Now let's talk about the electric side of things. So charge port is right back here on your G-Class. This thing uses a 116 kilowatt hour battery pack. Total range here is pegged at 385 kilometers. But actually when I had it fully charged to 100%, I saw a range readout above 400 kilometers. So it actually feels like the official rating might be a little bit low. And then I also want to show you, this is not a spare tire. It's actually a spot to store your charge cable. So that's sort of a neat feature here, although I do wish we did have a spare tire. Now let's talk towing and payload. First of all, towing, you're gonna notice there's no hitch down there, and you can't get a hitch. Mercedes says it is not recommended to tow with your electric G-Wagen. If you want to tow with a G, you have to get one with a gas engine, which is a little bit unfortunate. Now let's look at the payload. And it is also unfortunate at 760 pounds, but there is a reason for that number. So this vehicle has a GVWR, that is a gross vehicle weight rating, essentially how much the vehicle can weigh when it's fully loaded. It has a GVWR of 3,500 kilograms. That's just over 7,700 pounds. Now the reason for that number is because in Europe, if you go over 3,500 kilograms on your GVWR, it becomes a commercial vehicle, and Mercedes doesn't want that. So they have to keep that GVWR right at that number, and then this vehicle is kind of heavy. It weighs about 6,800 pounds. And then of course, this is Edition 1, so it's also getting, larger wheels and tires and a whole bunch of other features. So when you add the weight of the vehicle with the low GVWR, it gives you a terrible payload number. But this is one of those numbers I'd say, yeah, it's mostly because of the regulations. It's not actually a real world number. And it's unfortunate because I can't tell you sort of how much weight you could feel comfortable putting into this thing. I can pretty confidently tell you though, it's more than what's on the sticker. Let's take a look at the back seat here in this electric G. So I always like to start with the baby seat situation. There are lower latch anchors on the driver and passenger side, and then 3 top tethers along this bench, which is nice. Now, Mercedes lists this at just under 40 inches of legroom, and yeah, it's actually quite a bit. I stand at 6'2", and I have plenty of knee room. This seat, of course, could still move forward or back, but it's not bad. The first thing I notice is the headroom is abundant. It feels very tall up here. The floor, though, also feels very tall, too, so my knees are sitting up, a lot higher than they normally would in a lot of other vehicles. Overall, though, it's really a pretty comfortable back seat, even for a big adult like me. Now, the other thing I noticed is getting in and out's a little tricky because, again, you can see where this door is. I have to actually kind of duck down, and that just has everything to do with this very boxy shape. So, yeah, sort of ingress and egress and putting in sort of big things. If you're putting car seats back here or loading things in through the rear door, it can be a little strange. But once you're in here, it's actually quite sizable. And then talking about amenities, I get my own HVAC controls down here, a pair of USB-C and a 12-volt port. I get some vents right here and my own vent over here in the B-pillar, so that's nice. And these seats are also heated here in the second row. And then you can also see the way they fold flat. This seat bottom moves forward and then the back comes down, and that allows you to get a nice flat floor if you're not going to be using this row. And it's 60/40, which is nice. And now let's go take a look at the storage out back. So this is still this massive side hinge door, and no, you cannot get this door powered. Not normally something I'd complain about, but in an SUV this expensive, it would have been nice for this to open by itself. Anyways, let's take a look inside now. And this is, again, a nice feature. Look how much storage there is. I got to really reach in here to get to the back of this second row. So, in the names of adventure and having a vehicle that can go on a big adventure, you need a bunch of storage, and it is here. One kind of funny little feature, there's a little secret storage in the back of that seat. That's absolutely tiny, but it is there if you want to stash some stuff in the back of your seat there. And then let's close this big hatch and just listen. It's such a satisfying feeling and sound when you close the hatch. Actually, when you close all the doors here on this G-Wagon, Mercedes obviously focused on that because it's such a mechanical feeling, which is just so odd because this vehicle feels so futuristic and it's all electric and silent, but the doors still feel really substantial when you close them. It's got to be the nicest feeling door I've felt on a vehicle in a long time. And that's saying something because usually you don't notice, but here it's super noticeable just how satisfying it is to close the doors.
Hey folks, great news. You've seen us pitching giddy-ups before. Well, we ran out last fall. Now we have a whole new supply. These ones right here. Hey, these are the synthetic type. They only come in black and this design. However, these are bargain price, $25 a piece, or we'll sell you a set of 4 for $80. Listen, for anybody that needs a little help getting into their tall trucks or SUVs, giddy-ups can't be beat. So look for the link down below, click it, go right to our website. It's as easy as that. Get these in your truck today.
Let's take a look underneath now, and I want to start with the tow hook setup. So one tow hook up front. I do wish there was 2, but still one nice beefy tow hook, and that is right up into the frame rail there, so that is serious. Now talking about underbody protection, here's my magnet so I can show you. This front skid plate is steel, and I love to see this. Look at that, no gap whatsoever. This thing is absolutely sealed up. And then we get to the next skid plate. Once again, no gap. It actually overlaps. That's the best setup you can get. And this plate is not steel. It's actually plastic. Mercedes says that is carbon fiber reinforced plastic, so that is going to be pretty strong. And in my head, this is the optimal setup. The very first skid plate should be steel. That's going to take the hardest hits. And then next up, get to the plastic, because if you get up on an obstacle, you can always just drag that over it, and this stuff has a tendency to slide better than the steel will. So I like what they've done here. And then, of course, absolutely sealed up. This is where your battery pack lives. This is also that CFRP, carbon carbon fiber reinforced plastic. So nice to see. And most EVs look like this underneath, just totally sealed, because you need that battery to stay protected, not just off-road, but in an on-road crash too. You want to make sure your battery is nice and sealed up. Looking at suspension, we do have independent front suspension. And what's also interesting here, there are 4 individual motors. So 1 motor for each wheel. And those motors in the front are housed just up in here underneath this skid plate. So the motors are nice and protected too. Now, as I roll all the way to the back here, I can point out some other interesting things. Staying with suspension, this is still a solid rear axle back here, and it's a really interesting setup. The axle tube actually runs right back here, sort of rearward, and then just in front of it, you have the electric motors which send their power outward. So yes, Mercedes obviously took a lot of time to make sure they could keep the solid axle in the rear end of this vehicle. And a lot of other brands have just ditched it. Take the pickup trucks that we're seeing that have gone all electric, the Silverado, the Lightning, the Tesla Cybertruck, they're all independent suspension all the way around, because those engineers realized it's just so much easier to deal with these electric motors without that axle tube. But not Mercedes. They kept this thing rugged with an actual axle back here, so that's pretty cool. And that's going to help with your articulation off-road, so I can't wait to hit the dirt and see what happens with it. All right, folks, time to go off-road, but there are 2 more numbers I have to drop on you. First one is the price, and yes, this thing as it sits is north of $200,000 here in Canada. That's one of the reasons why you're probably not going to find a lot of them out here in the forest running through the mud, because this thing is so expensive and no one's going to drop that money and then come beat on their vehicle. Well, at least not many people. That said, though, Mercedes says it's a G-Wagen. They spend all their time talking about its off-road capability, so I want to put it to the test. Now, the second set of numbers I want to drop on you are the off-road clearances, because they're actually pretty dang good too. We're talking about a 32-degree approach angle, a departure of 30.7 degrees, and a breakover at 20.3 degrees. And the wheelbase here is just over 113 inches, so that's a nice little compact wheelbase. I get the feeling it's going to feel really good off-road just based on its dimensions. So first up, we're doing the ditch crossing. As I've been saying in my last bunch of videos, it's still true, it's very dry right now. Usually this ditch crossing is full of mud. Right now it's super dry. And as you might notice, I was out here with our backhoe doing a bit of work on the ditch crossing, so I tried to bang down the walls a little bit and make them a little less vertical, but I also tried to make it a little deeper in the center as well. So I should mention now, I'm in low range, and there's a few interesting things happening in low range. The first one is when I lift off the brake, it's gonna crawl forward at the slowest speed possible. So climbing up and out of the ditch there, I didn't touch the throttle. So what you saw there is what Mercedes calls its slow crawl. So when you put this thing into low range, you get 3 choices: slow crawl, variable crawl, or fast crawl. And when you're in slow crawl, yeah, the vehicle is going to creep you along at about 2 kilometers per hour, regardless of whether you're going up a hill, down a hill, or anything like that. So that was pretty nice. And you saw it come out of that ditch. I mean, it was so calm and controlled. And yeah, that's definitely what you want off-road. So that was cool. Now, next up, we're going to try our offset mounds, and this is going to test the articulation and the lockers. So the lockers here are lockers. They're not physical axle lockers. Essentially, Mercedes is just mimicking them using the 4 individual motors. And considering each tire can get its own power, it should be as good or better than a locker, because the Mercedes can send power to both tires, but it can also cheat some more power to the one that has more traction. So that should be interesting to feel. Now, the one kind of unfortunate thing is I can't control the lockers. It's not like I'm in here touching any buttons to lock up. They're automatic. So it's essentially going to sense slip and then do its thing. So I've got it in low range mode and I have it in rock mode. So this is the most off-road ready mode we can put it in. And yeah, let's go for it here. Very curious to see what it does. So right about here, we should get a bit of slip. Oh wow, almost no slip. I don't think there was any slip. And I don't even think we've listed a tire yet. Okay, well, the articulation is awesome here on this G-Class, and it came through our mounds no problem. So that's why we built these mounds. Yes, Dad and I came out here and we decided, you know what, the new mounds we built, they're not big enough. They're big enough for some crossovers, some SUVs, but not hardcore off-roaders. So now we've built a second set, which is even bigger. So some vehicles might just go through the first 4, and then others are gonna go through the big 4, and this G-Class definitely qualifies. So let's keep on moving here. And let's see if we can't get some tires in the air. Okay, so up and over. And I should mention too, this is the first vehicle that's run on these mounds. So it's also a bit of a guinea pig. Okay, nice. Oh yeah. Ooh, there was the tiniest bit of slip. And then it locked up so fast. Let's see what happens here. That was so good. First of all, I didn't touch the throttle even once there. That was just me using the brake. And then I felt it. The wheel felt like it lifted. I felt like a couple rotations of slip, and then boom, the power was right there. And that was like so calm and controlled. It was unbelievable, which is always what you're going for off-road. Yeah, man, that was incredibly impressive. I honestly didn't expect it to be that good, but that was, yeah, that was damn good. Now let's look at the cameras and some of the off-road technology inside of this electric G. So first of all, I'll just go ahead and put it in reverse, and there's our standard backup cam. Now you can change that to a wide angle camera, and I like it because the menu stays there, but it actually becomes see-through, so that is kind of cool. And then at any time, you can click around your vehicle and get these 3D views. So look in there, look in there. There's your front camera. You can also get that 3D front camera. So I'll put it in drive now, and you can see it's a pretty distorted image over here, so I wouldn't really use this one on the move, but for parking and then for checking how close you are to the lines or to a curb, that's going to work pretty well. So those are sort of your standard cameras. Then I can hit my off-road cockpit button, and this is going to bring up our off-road information screen. So we're going to start over here with the off-road track. Let's go ahead and hit start. And we're going to record an off-road track. Yes, Mercedes, no problem. This is private property. So let's go ahead. We'll record a track, and I'll show you that in a little bit once it's recorded. Now, this is your standard off-road screen. So this suspension readout is cool. You can actually see where the suspension is in real time, which is super neat. And then you can also see your steering angle there. And I like the steering angle readouts for slow speed off-roading because it's true that sometimes if you come to a complete stop, you almost forget exactly where your wheels are positioned. So that's always there to remind you. And then I can also press right here. You can get to your tire pressure readout, tire temperature readout, your GPS positioning. Although don't look, everybody, you're going to come find our trails. And then over here you have drive. This is showing you which wheel is getting power at what time. So especially in a low traction situation, you can see, you know, what's spinning and what's not spinning. So that is pretty cool. Now there is one more off-road camera I'm going to show you. There's a physical button for it down here, and then there's also a button on the screen for it. And that is this view, the see-through hood view. So as I roll here, you're going to see you're looking underneath your hood. Now, like a lot of other systems on the market today, that is not a live view. Oh, I went a little too quick there, and it switched over to our other view. I love the transition between that view and this view. Now, I was just trying to explain, this is not a live view. This is taking an image from in front of the vehicle and then superimposing it there under the vehicle, but still cool. And now I'll show you once again, as I speed up, watch the transition. It's so neat the way it does that because it doesn't want you using that invisible hood view when you're moving at quicker speeds. And then you get this view. It's showing you live inclinometers, also showing my steering angle, my elevation, my positioning on a compass. So a really neat off-road view. And I love it. The fact that we've been recording this whole time, you can see up here in the corner, it's actually sort of showing me my little breadcrumb map there and showing me my track. So let's just keep driving for a minute here. And then when we stop, I'll show you what our little track recording looks like. So we're just pulling into the shop now. So now let's go ahead and hit stop on our route recording. Go yes. And now we can see our off-road track. And this is cool. First of all, you can set the image based on what the conditions were. Today it's sunny with a little bit of clouds. That was a very easy trail. And there you go. There's all the information on that off-road run. Elevation gain, loss, how long it was. You can send it to your phone. And of course, we just drove around a couple of our trails here. But if you were out for an entire day, you'd really have a lot of data at the end to share. And then you can come back here. You can drive it again. That's so neat, man. I love having that access to information. If I go to drive, what does it do? Oh, drive to starting point. And then once you get to the starting point, it'll track you along your way. Yeah, that's pretty cool. Okay, everybody, and now we are moving on to the left hook. Now, I have to tell you straight up, if it was super muddy back here, which it normally is, I wouldn't be coming to this trail. These tires are not suited for mud at all. In fact, they're not aggressive tires even a little bit. So on a normal day, what I would consider normal back here, I wouldn't be doing this, but it came through those mounds so well. The lockers feel so good, and the clearance feels good, and it's bone dry. So all of those things mean we're going to run this thing through the left hook right now. And again, it feels great coming in here. At this point, I do want to mention the seating position. It's such a tall, commanding seating position. You just have this great sense for everything around you. Because of the vehicle's sort of skinny dimensions too, it just feels nice and compact. I can see sort of the flat spot on the fender down there, so I know right where that wheel is. Yeah, the seating position feels excellent off-road, and it feels very much like what you find in a Land Rover product or even in a Jeep Wrangler. So definitely like the seating position, and it feels well suited for doing this. So as we roll along here, I just got to say again, I really like this sort of active crawl mode that Mercedes has. The second you put this thing into low range, that sort of off-road cruise control comes on. So it just keeps me moving forward at 2 kilometers an hour steadily. Now I can change it. I can go to variable off-road crawl. That'll speed me up. Or fast off-road crawl. Now fast is 8 kilometers an hour here. So I switched it back to slow. I like the slow off-road crawl. But yeah, I like the system. It's a bit weird that it's on automatically compared to everything else on the market where that system can be controlled independently. Here, it's just like, nope, the second you're in low range, you get it. But it does feel good, and so far it works quite well. The other interesting thing here is the low range. It's actual gear reduction, but because there's 4 individual motors and not one transmission, there's actually 4 individual transmissions, one at each motor, and each one has the gear reduction. So, you know, that's just from behind the wheel, there's no difference. It's just an interesting sort of technological difference and physical difference, but I think that's cool. Essentially, you can think of it like 4 little transfer cases, one on each one of the motors, and the low range feels incredible. Like, once again, I haven't touched the throttle this whole time, but the power just feels so smooth. The torque is right there. And of course, right now I'm in the deep section here on the left hook. I can't believe there's no water here. It's wild this year. But yeah, so far no issue. This could be the only thing that poses an issue for the G-Class on this trail is this hill, and the loose rocks on this hill are really getting kicked up and spread around. So let's see what it does on the rocks. No problem there. Again, not touching the throttle. This is all G Wagen doing this. Oh, I think I rubbed the skid plate there. Okay, so as it hit those rocks, yeah, that's the first time I felt it be a little bit jumpy, because then it really had an obstacle it had to contend with. But in terms of slip, in terms of smoothness, it's right there. The more I do this, the more it's like playing a flippin' video game. The machine here is just doing everything, and it's doing it so well that I just sit behind the wheel and, you know, sip a drink and cruise through the forest. It's quite amazing. And now I'll also talk about the other aspect of it. It's silent. There's a bit of a hum. There's a bit of a low kind of bassy hum, which is constantly being emitted. Every EV has to put out a noise, you know, by law. The government says it has to make a noise, so that's what it is here. But outside of that low hum, silent off-roading is so cool. Listen, I love V8s. I love the V8 in, you know, my old truck. I love a good exhaust sound. But I'm also in love with silent off-roading. It's so nice to come out in the forest and you can hear what's going on. You can hear the tires breaking over sticks and crunching through the leaves, and it just opens up a whole new world that wasn't there before, and it really activates your ears a lot more than they ever were before. So yes, also just loving the silent off-roading. This is our first downhill now in the slow off-road crawl setting, and not surprisingly, incredibly smooth and controlled and quiet. But always nice too, if you do put your foot into the accelerator, the power is right there if you want it. Now here's one last gnarly section of trail to get through. Oh, there might be the tiniest bit of mud here. It's incredibly impressive. It's incredibly impressive for a vehicle that quite likely will almost never do this. And that's where you gotta give Mercedes kudos, man. They know who buys the G-Class. They're very aware of where most of these Gs are gonna live, and they don't care. They keep making it a rugged, hardcore vehicle. The fact that it even still has that rear solid axle is kind of crazy to me. So yeah, kudos to Mercedes. And I guess, you know what, I'm talking about it like they just love making this. They also make a lot of money on it, and this works for them. So they've obviously discovered a business case here. And I do wonder to myself, if they softened it, if they took away that rear axle, if they got rid of some of the off-road stuff, would it matter? I'm not sure. It feels like the answer is an obvious no, but the fact that they've never done it and it keeps selling, I think that's part of the allure here, is even if you don't use it, you still want to know you could do it. And especially when it comes to this electric G, man, you can still do it. You can get after some pretty gnarly off-road obstacles, and it's gonna handle it. Now it's the point in the video you've probably been waiting for. Yes, this all-electric G-Wagon can do tank turns, and that is when the vehicle spins in place 360 degrees. You can see it here. Now, honestly, folks, G-turn, it's really just a gimmick. It's all about, look at this cool thing I can do and let's go show my friends. But there's another system that's actually practical. Mercedes calls it G-steering. Now, the idea here is when you're underway, you can cut down on the turning radius, once again, using those individual electric motors in the back. And I'm going to demonstrate it here. So I've got some beautiful white pines out here in our meadow, but they're really tight together. So just use your imagination with me. Pretend that there's two solid walls on either side, and I've got to get through these white pines. This is when a feature like G-steering is actually going to make a big difference. So I'm still in low range. I've got it in rock drive mode, and now I've engaged my G-steering. So here we go. And I'm gonna do this kind of slow. I don't wanna go too fast. A bit of speed does help, so crank it in here. And I got a little close to that tree, but it made it. And here's the neat thing. You might have noticed, when I'm standing almost still, if I crank the wheel, it just starts doing it in my rear end. The inside tire grabs, the outside tire rotates. And even at slow speeds, it works. Again, it works a little bit better at higher speeds because you build up some of that inertia and momentum. But even at low speeds, man, it's pretty impressive. And then around the last one, and I've already been around the tightest two, but like I said, come around at speed. Yeah. And then you can also just do this at speed. And it's just incredibly fun. But outside of fun, yeah, the G steering here really does have practical purposes. If you are navigating tight, tricky off-road sections and you just need that extra little bit like I did right there, G-steering is going to get it for you. And I'm glad to see Mercedes use this cool steering system for something other than just cool gimmicks. Sure, it's great that you can do those donuts and show your friends, but yeah, get out here on a tight trail and it's actually going to make a difference. Now, I do have one word of caution. Use it only on slippery surfaces. And Mercedes is smart. They won't let you do this on the pavement. If you try, the vehicle is going to sense, hey, I have way too much grip. That's not going to work. And I'll show you why I'm telling you this. Here's the issue right here. These turns are hard on the tires. The tires on this vehicle are beat up. Now, this is a media vehicle, so it's been through a whole bunch of other media and journalists. I'm sure every single one of them is trying out the G-turn because it is cool. So you could probably argue that this thing is getting beat on a little bit more than most owners would. But it is absolutely worth mentioning that doing these turns, even on hard packed dirt and grass like we're on today, they're going to do a number on your tires. So it's a fun, cool feature, but I would only use it when absolutely necessary. And no, it's never necessary to do a G-turn, but just be aware, if you're out there doing a bunch of them, spinning this thing for your friends, you're gonna chew through your rubber. All right, folks, now we're coming on-road in this G-Class because we gotta feel what it's like on the pavement as well. This is gonna be its natural habitat. And I'm in sport mode. Let's just quickly here, put my foot into it. And it's ridiculous, absolutely ridiculous. It's 0 to 100 kilometers an hour in less than 5 seconds. And of course, it's funnier in this vehicle because it's so heavy, but then it's also just a brick. You know what? The new generation G is a little slipperier than it has been in the past. So you can argue, yes, the edges have been rounded a bit, but essentially this is still a brick pushing through the wind, and a brick has no business being this quick. So no doubt that the power on road is never going to be an issue for you. And then when it comes to handling, the real key here is active suspension and active dampers. So when I put this G into sport mode and then I take a turn like this one right here, it stays so planted. A bitty body roll there, still a little bit, but really not bad. Again, it's still just a brick trying to go around corners. Now, I will switch it to comfort for this next corner. And let's just feel the difference. And it's absolutely there. You can feel it lean into that corner. In a straight line here, it's a little more roly-poly and a little less precise. But still, for the most part, the handling is pretty impressive. And this is definitely a vehicle where you want those active dampers. You want the comfort out of it when you're cruising, but then if you do want to pick up the speeds a bit, and the speeds can pick up really aggressively, you're going to want to use that sport mode. And then I should also mention off-road. You know, we were driving around all day today on our trails. It felt extremely comfortable there too. So suspension damping and suspension tuning here is pretty dang impressive as well, even once you get on-road. Now we've got to talk a little bit more about this interior, because it is absolutely beautiful. To me, the nicest feature in here is the blue weave that's in the carbon fiber. I've never seen carbon fiber like that before, so having that color in there just really pops, and then you get it next to the blue stitching that's in the leather. Yeah, this interior is absolutely beautiful. Not the most practical. I don't really love what's going on down here in the center console. There's not really a lot of spots to just toss your stuff. There is wireless charging for my phone, but once you get a water bottle or a cup in down here, you can't really reach your phone anymore. And same thing, even for the car key, there's no great spot to toss it. So yeah, at-hand storage isn't good, but it can be forgiven just for how dang nice everything in here looks. And listen, it's a $200,000 SUV, so it better look incredible. But yeah, there's nothing in here I can pick out and say, that feels cheap, that looks cheap, that doesn't look quite right. Every little detail is meticulous and gorgeous. Except for maybe one little detail on the interior. The sunshade here is manual? What the heck, Mercedes? It's $200,000. This thing should open and close by itself. Most vehicles do that today. What can I say? Of course, I'm just nitpicking and being funny, but honestly, in a vehicle this expensive, this is not what I expected to find up here. There is one more thing I want to show you guys. The G-Roar sound experience. So when you turn that on, it is actually going to mimic a gas engine. So we'll put it in sport mode too. So it's going to sound like a V8. And now listen up. And it's not bad. It's really using the bass frequencies. It's more of like a physical rumble that you feel. It doesn't have any of the high frequencies or the high pitch, but it definitely gets that low bass. And then, yeah, when you put your foot into it, it doesn't sound too bad. So I'm okay with the way it sounds. But now I'm gonna tell you that I was driving this thing on the highway, and suddenly I was going, why am I feeling this bassy rumble? And then I remembered, oh, I can shut the sound off. So taking off under hard acceleration, I'm good with it. But while I'm just driving, why do I want to listen to a bassy rumble I don't need? So I'm going to shut it off, try to listen to the difference. And back to silence. Listen, this is a personal preference, but me personally, I like the silence. It's an electric vehicle. Let's let it be an electric vehicle. That's one of the advantages of going for an EV, is getting that quiet powertrain. So I guess for the most part, I'm happy that Mercedes gives us the choice. A lot of other brands do this now too. At least give me the choice to shut it off. So kudos to them for doing that. Me personally, yeah, I don't see myself using this feature because it's an EV and I want it to sound like an EV, which is to say, whisper quiet. Well, ladies and gentlemen, we have come to the end of this video. I mean, what can I say? When you're spending this much money, you expect a vehicle that's incredible, and I think the G-Wagen checks that box. It's super comfortable and quiet on-road. It actually handles half decent, and then you saw it when you get it off-road, and granted, we weren't in the mud today, but still, when you get it off-road, the brain is so smart, the systems here are incredible, the technology's good. I can't really find much to complain about outside of the price tag. I certainly can't afford it, but if you can afford one, I don't think you're going to be disappointed. Yeah, folks, that's it for me on this one. Now I need to hear from you. Why don't you drop in the comments, let me know what you think about this electric G. As you're down there, don't forget to hit like, hit subscribe, hit join to become a member, and then come right back here to Truck King and see what we're testing next. See ya.